Hi, my name is Susan Shaner with Sage Leadership Strategies, LLC, and I'm your host today of Community Forum. And my host is Nicole Coyle, who is the owner of Home Boutique in Bethel. It's a tailoring and a sort of a mixed shop. We're going to find out more about it. Welcome, Nicole.
Thank you.
So can you give us a little bit of your background in terms of how long you've been in the Danbury area and how you came up with this interesting concept of the store?
I've been in Bethel about 8 years now and moved here from London, England. My store came about as a way to get all of my loves and businesses out of my house. So I now have them under one roof.
Oh, great. Now, you weren't originally from England? You don't sound like you have an English
I'm
accent.
from Albany, New York originally, and moved to Florida, and then moved to England to work.
Oh, wow. So what brought you to the Bethel area?
Bethel area, we got relocated from England, and Connecticut was in between New York City and where we had to work, so we settled here.
So how would you describe your store as an interesting blend of an old-fashioned tailor shop, but then it carries some sort of yoga and what I call sort of new age products. How do you
well, I'm a yoga teacher, and I have been for over 10 years, and I also am a seamstress. I went to school for fashion design, and I've been doing that for 18 years now. So the two separate avenues, I guess you could say, are my entire life, and I needed a way to kind of combine them, and I started to make yoga clothing that was doing very well locally. So I decided to open a boutique and a tailoring shop, but a tailoring shop fashioned after old Parisian salons, where women could come in and sit and relax and read and look around, and where everything was under one roof for your entire lifestyle, from body products to books to CDs to clothing.
So your hope is that people come in and just kind of hang out at the store and chat and.
It seems to be becoming that kind of a place. They're coming in to find out what it is, really. The window kind of makes it a bit of a mystery. They're not really sure what it is. There are, sewing machines in the window, thread hanging, but no one really knows for sure what it is inside those doors. So when they come in, they're sometimes surprised, sometimes shocked. There are lots of mixed reactions, and sometimes people just come in and sit on the couch and just sit and take it all in. So there's a lot to take in.
Because it's called Home, but then you have some, what does it say on the
It's called
title?
Home, Truth, Transformation, and Alteration. So I always say that through altering clothes or altering yourself on the inside, you get to the truth of who you are. And, it takes a simple alteration of a piece of clothing to make something more unique and more of who you are.
So that's some deep tailoring there.
There's deep, tailoring with spirit.
Tailoring from within. Is that what it is?
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Seems to be that way. Right. Incognito.
Right. But it sounds like you have a pretty well-schooled and steeped background in being a seamstress.
Went to school for fashion design in New York and worked under Perry Ellis.
Really?
Mm-hmm, for a while. And also worked for a few other designers freelance, and then I worked for a manufacturer in Troy, New York, and from there I moved to Florida and then freelanced for Nickelodeon television.
Oh, wow.
And since I moved to Florida, I've been freelancing basically, but I got into alterations when I lived in Florida. A few people asked me to alter some clothing, knowing that I knew how to sew, but alterations are a different ball game than designing. Sometimes it's easier to make something from scratch than it is to alter it.
Yeah.
And a woman in Florida found out I was doing alterations from my house, and she wasn't very happy because she owned the only tailoring shop on the island. So she called me, and she actually didn't want her shop anymore, so she said that she would apprentice me and then give me her shop, and that's exactly what happened.
Oh, very cool.
Mm-hmm.
So you've had a tailoring shop in Florida?
I took over one, yes.
Oh, okay.
She continued to work there after the whole Switch came about, nobody really knew that the Switch came about. She had been there for 25 years, and when they would walk in and see me, they would ask, where my mother was. So they weren't quite ready to have a young owner of a shop in Florida, so we kind of just left it the way it was, and no one was the wiser.
So it sounds like you've sort of studied, or I guess the term is apprentice, under a number of people. You sort of mentioned in passing there Perry Ellis. I mean, what was that like? I mean, that's a brand name.
Well, that came about, one of Perry Ellis's knitwear designers was a critic at my college for our senior fashion show, and I ended up getting an internship there in my senior year, and after my senior year I got a job. It was very surreal almost to see, all the people that you see on TV all the time walking around you, and you have to kind of be very, very, very cool about it, not starstruck, and although at the time Perry Ellis wasn't actually the designer anymore, he had, head designers, and then we would do fashion shows that were televised on TV, and you were dressing models. It was very, 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 very surreal, kind of a dream world now. It's so long ago. So
you actually studied seamstressing, or
I studied fashion design at university, which is very, very different from alterations, which basically means you draw something, a piece of clothing, an outfit, a collection, and then you make it from nowhere. He just kind of develops from thin air. And
oh, cool. Where did you go to school for fashion design?
I went to Marist College in Poughkeepsie.
Oh, wow. And so now with your shop, you're just doing alterations, or are you also doing...
I'm doing custom clothing as well.
Okay.
I've had a few requests for men's suits lately, and
really?
Yes, and some dresses for women. And out of the shop now, we have our own line of yoga clothing. So
really?
Yes.
So you do everything. I mean, that's very different from men's suits to yoga.
Yes, it's one end of the spectrum, exactly the whole thing. So I said I haven't been stumped yet. So.
Well, you must be very talented. I mean, it's a knack. Those are very different kinds of clothing, or it really doesn't matter. Once you can sew one thing...
I don't think that once you can sew one thing, you can do everything, but thankfully, when I worked in Florida, they did men's tailoring, and very, very well, and fine men's tailoring, and so I learned from them how to make a suit, because in a university, we only focused on women's clothing, so I had no idea how to make a man's suit jacket.
I know, it seems like there's a lot more variance and a lot more creativity and interests, although the men would kill me for saying this, but with women's clothing.
There is. They're easier to make as well, but men's suits are difficult. They look so simple, but they're underneath they are a complete mystery and a puzzle.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I guess that's like in life, too. I don't know. No, just kidding. Just kidding. You set me up for that one.
I did. I'm sorry. Yeah, somebody had to say it other than myself.
So how did you first get interested in this? I mean, is this something that you were interested in since you were a little girl, or it just came to you one day?
Well, my mother, I don't remember, but my mother said that from the time she gave me my first doll, I would tear the clothes apart and put them back together with glue and staples, and she was very lovely and saved her, doll collection for when she was a child, and I tore all their clothes apart and added pipe cleaners and pom-poms and things like that to them, and from there I just tore everything apart and would make my own clothing as best as I could. I didn't know how to sew at all.
So it started with the Barbies?
Started with Barbies, yes. Started with Barbies and myself as an experiment. So, yeah. And then I went to high school and took a million art classes, and I had a great art teacher who taught me how to illustrate for fashion design. So.
Wow. So you're an artist too, but you directed it to designing other clothes?
Yeah, I was an artist my whole life, always drawing, always surrounding myself with paper and pencils and paint.
So it sounds like you've got a lot of interest, and so you just pulled, like a lot of interest and a lot of talents, though, and you've pulled them under one roof.
I'm trying to pull them under one roof. I think sometimes when people walk in, it looks little bit like a hodgepodge, but it makes complete sense to me. So, there's the tailoring and the custom clothing and the yoga line, and I have a small jewelry company that I create jewelry for healing purposes. So now that's under that roof. We make that there as well. So it's all kind of, yeah.
So you're really busy.
I'm very busy.
I mean, as an entrepreneur, I mean, how do you have time for everything? Because it sounds like, I mean, a lot of your products and services you are making.
I am making. And I've, only been under one roof for a couple of months now, so I'm trying to find balance between all the things that I do and teaching yoga and actually living. So it's been a hard 8 weeks, little sleep, very little sleep, and but it seems to be, coming out on the upswing. So I'm figuring it out as I go along.
Well, you just opened in June, so
I just opened in
starting
June.
Up any, I mean, this is your third business you started, right?
It's my third business in my life, yes. So, and all of them have ended because I've moved. So I decided to move for one reason or another. So I owned another business in Bethel about 5 years ago where all I did was make custom wedding dresses. So that was the only thing that I did.
I think I remember. What was that called? Occasions? No.
No, NC Couture. It was called.
NC Couture. Okay.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. So you had the business in Florida. You had the business in Bethel.
And now I have this one in Bethel.
So what was the genesis of the idea for this particular business, and why now?
Well, I wasn't doing alterations for a while. I gave myself a little bit of time away from the sewing machine, and I was just focusing on teaching yoga and my jewelry company, which is yogic jewelry. So I started to get a lot of requests for alterations, and I was working out of my house, and my house started to look like a factory with everything that I was doing.
Okay.
So the natural progression was just to find a space to kind of put it all under one roof, and I thought maybe I'd have to choose one or the other, and but I realized that I can't quite choose because they all are who I am. So I had to make it work somehow, and
then you ended up finding a store that just became available next to the yoga studio.
Right
so that's
next to the
convenient.
yoga studio, I teach
yoga. And
I go right back and forth
next
all
door
day
and make some
long.
jewelry
That's
and
exactly what I do. I go there, I go here, I go there, I go here. Yes. So my whole life is in two spaces. Yeah.
Wow. You don't sleep there though.
I've slept there a couple of times so far, so
oh, wow.
It's okay though. It's not a bad place to sleep. Big, comfy couches.
Wow. So you said you'd have difficulty choosing if you had to. So there isn't one thing that you really love more than the other. You want to keep doing it all.
I want to keep doing it all. Eventually, I'd like to have that be the place where everything is just made at like a showroom boutique, and maybe my line of yoga clothing will be picked up in other boutiques. And if that happens, then obviously we need to find a place to have things made other than myself making them. So
yeah. Would you ever think of having your own assistants or people apprenticing with you in your shop?
Yes, actually, I'm getting interns in September from a local college, so they're coming to help and to learn, and so that'll be helpful to me and then helpful to them as well.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, starting any business, as most entrepreneurs know, at the beginning you're the auto washer, cook, whatever they say, you're everything. But then after a while, you've got to replicate yourself, otherwise you'll burn out.
You have to clone yourself somehow, and biologically it's not going to happen. So.
Right. Not in this lifetime anyway.
No.
So where are you getting interns from?
Actually, Catherine Gibbs College is sending interns.
Now, they have a design program there?
They have a design program, yeah, in their Connecticut branch and their New York City branch. So I happen.
Isn't that interesting? I mean, last I knew, they trained assistants.
Yeah, they have a fashion design merchandising program, so a very good one, actually.
So that's really smart. You get either inexpensive or free labor.
Exactly. And I also put a call into my old university, Marist. When I had my last business, they sent interns, so I'm hoping that they can find them again, although it's a long distance to drive every day. So,
And you already have a lot of practice from a teaching or mentoring perspective with the yoga.
I do, yeah.
Have you ever had mentors in this kind of work? I mean, apprentices in this kind of work before?
I have. My last boutique, I had 2 interns that worked with me for a whole year, and then I was an adjunct professor at Marist in the program that I graduated from for wedding dress design. So.
Oh, that's great. So teaching students how to do what you do.
Yes, because there was no class to teach them how to specialize in wedding design. So you kind of find your own avenue after you graduate, according to what you like and what you love. It's very general when you go to school and learn how to design and how to create clothing. So you have to kind of find your own niche. And there was a huge interest in wedding dress design, and so they asked me to come back and.
Oh, that's very cool. So how did you learn how to design dresses? Actually make them, not just.
Well, that I learned in college. I had an amazing director who taught us everything he knew. He was the head designer for Oscar de la Renta for a very long time, and he took a sabbatical and decided to teach for a little while, and we got very lucky to have him when we were in school. And he taught us how to design couture, which means everything's made by hand. You use the sewing machine as little as possible. And so very, very fine stitching, the old French way of sewing. So it just became, there was a love for dresses that took a really long time, hand beaded, hand embroidered. They were a challenge. So it just became, that became my love for a while. So
because it seems like that's like a lost art.
It is a lost art. Well, even tailoring's a lost art. There are no more around. It's a dying trade, and everybody when they graduate from fashion school wants to be the next Calvin Klein, and it's really hard. There are so many people who want to be designers, and there's only so much room in the spotlight. And what they forget is that the people who do day-to-day things for normal people
are really needed and important too.
They're needed more, I think, than the designer that makes a $20,000 dress. So, there are people who just need simple alterations, and there's nowhere to get them anymore. So,
wow. So it seems like you're offering a really valuable service locally, and your shop is almost like sort of this new age retro tailoring shop.
It is kind of. Yeah, when you walk in, it is kind of a flashback to half the store is old France, half the store is the 60s.
Yeah.
It's a definite combination of who I am and how I grew up. I have this very, very, fancy side to me, but I'm a hippie at heart, so it's all kind of combined that way in the store. Chandeliers with my clothing racks are made out of found mountain laurel branches, and so it's very organic, yet very special as well. So.
Wow, so it's really an expression of you.
It is a definite expression of me, and we named it Home because I wanted it to feel that way when you walked in, very cozy, comfy, like you'd been there your whole life. And
that's why you have everybody hanging out on the couches
That's
talking.
Exactly why till midnight sometimes, yeah, they're there.
So how did you come to love, sounds like almost, the behind-the-scenes work that nobody wants to do?
I'm not very comfortable being in the spotlight, so
doing fine now.
Yeah, thank you. I've always done the behind-the-scenes work, even in school. When we had fashion show productions, I was the one behind doing all the quick alterations. I did costume design for theater for a while, so I was always the one behind. Nobody ever had to see my my face. They only saw my work, and I'm much more comfortable that way. So.
Well. You clearly, it sounds like throughout your career you've gained, a following wherever you've gone, so you must do good quality work, even though you like being behind the scenes.
Yeah, well, now it's a little hard being behind the scenes, since when you walk in, I'm right there with my sewing machines, but I also have been in the area for a while, so I know a lot of people, and I, teach a lot of students, and I've lived there, for a number of years, so people know who I am, so I'm not so uncomfortable in Bethel.
Well, I was going to say, because when you're sitting in front of a class and you're teaching a class, you're not behind the scenes.
I'm not. I'm directly in front of you, and I'm the one being called teacher, which I have to say is an uncomfortable title, because more times than not, I'm the one learning from my students. So. Well,
when you teach something like yoga, you can always get away with saying, "I'm a student too."
Exactly. Exactly.
More so than other things you teach.
You
right?
are. You learn from your students. They make you aware of everything that's going on through their actions, and so. Actually, my students are my teachers. I just happen to be the person facilitating the class at the time.
Yeah. So what is your ultimate vision, if you will, for your store or your work?
Well, I have in mind to kind of the store, to have it get a little bit bigger and be another extension of the yoga studio, where it becomes this entire like eco lifestyle store, so that there are home goods that are organic, all natural fibers. Everything in there is all natural fiber now, and books and CDs that actually maybe open your mind a little bit more. And I ultimately want to open an organic raw restaurant, juice bar. So I want it to be kind of like this healthy way of living, all under one roof,
Wow.
So
it would be tailoring and
I know
raw bar.
Everything I am.
Wow.
This oxymoron of
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, that's terrific. So is there sort of an ideal client that you target, or just somebody seeking alterations in truth, it sounds like?
I think that half my clientele are just people who need alterations. They see the sign out front, says alterations in tailoring, and they come in and they happen to look around and maybe...
They're like, oh, what's all this other stuff here?
Exactly. There's a lot of explaining to do sometimes, especially with the older crowd. But then the other half are people from, the yoga studio, or people who know me and know that they can come in and get things that they're looking for that they can probably only find online, that would, enhance their yoga practice or, their meditation practice. So I don't have a particular clientele. I'm not really targeting myself towards one section of people or another. I think it's just, I'm hoping that everybody finds it.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting, because some of the sort of typical, I don't know, business books or advice on starting up a business would say, target a particular client or market,
right.
Focus. You don't want to spread yourself too thin.
Right.
But you're saying, no, it's working for you, and you don't think you need to do that.
It works for me because it is who I am.
Yeah.
Even if I didn't have the store, I am all of those things, and so my focus is on all of those things all the time. And so my whole life has been that way, doing 2 or 3 things at one time, different avenues of business. And so it seems natural to me. For me to do just one thing, I think I would get quite bored.
Yeah.
And probably not be as happy as I am right now. But
so the fact that you really, it sounds like you really have 3 businesses under one roof.
I do.
You've got the jewelry, you've got the, whatever you want to call it, yoga, new age kind of products, and then you've got the tailoring.
Right.
But you're saying those are all different parts of you, and not only do you not find it crazy making, but you actually enjoy it. It's part of who you are, and you need to do that.
Exactly. Exactly.
But it all works.
It all works, and I modeled it after. I grew up near Woodstock, New York, and so I modeled it after stores that I love going to. The whole town is that way. You walk in, and there's 3 different businesses under one roof, and it just is the way that I know and what I love.
Well, it's not a general store, but it almost reminds me of like the old-fashioned general store that had everything there.
Definitely reminds you of the one on Little House on the Prairie, when you'd go in and buy your fabric, and they would make clothes in the back, and you'd get your grain. Yeah, it's a little bit. I know it's a little odd.
Yeah. So again, it sort of harkens this. Yeah, just a retro, but with a new age twist.
Very much so.
So is there anything so far that you wished you would have done, or you would do differently, or anything additional you want to make sure you're going to do in the coming months?
I don't think that there's anything I wish I did differently. I'm very happy with the way everything is at the moment, and maybe some more sleep. If I could get 4 more hours in the day, that would be good.
Yeah,
Make my day 28 hours instead of 24.
Yeah.
But that's the only thing right now, is the trying to fit everything in factor, because I definitely didn't think I would be this busy from the day I opened. I'm extremely busy.
Oh, you mean in terms of
alterations?
Wow.
It's silly,
the word
actually.
got out really quick, I guess.
Yeah, and I didn't actually advertise. I just put a sign in the window that said alterations, and people just kind of came in.
Isn't that interesting? Because you've only been open since June, right?
Yes, and I'm so busy. And it keeps coming in every day. Every day I open and say, well, maybe this is the last day. Maybe it was a fluke.
So what I'm actually hearing from you is, okay, forget all, the business gurus and all of that. Just follow, like for you, what's working is
Following my heart.
following your heart, aligning to that. And it sounds like it happens to fit really well. I mean, clearly you must be filling a need in the area, specifically around alteration.
Seems to be that way. People have literally come in and said, "You have no idea how happy I am you're open." Like, thanks, I'm glad I'm open too. But because they have like piles of clothes, people aren't coming in with one thing. They're coming in with like hangers full
storing
of
it for
clothes.
years.
Yeah, they can't find anyone to alter it, and seems nowadays, because everybody's having a little bit of financial, hardship with what's going on in the world, it's easier to alter something than it is to buy something brand new.
Oh, that's interesting.
So
Okay.
it's cheaper to do that and make it your own if it needs a little bit of work than to just go out and buy a new suit, for instance. My biggest clients right now are men getting their suits altered. It's cheaper to have me do them than for them to go buy 5 new suits. So,
So that's interesting. Do you think in that regard you're competing with the stores where they buy their suits?
I don't think so at all. No, I think for every 5 suits that I altered, there are probably 10 being bought somewhere.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's still a need for buying new suits, but these are people who are, losing weight, have changed their lifestyle, and things need to be fit to them now. They don't fit them anymore. So,
Well, that's actually that speaks well if people are going to you because they're losing weight.
Yes,
that's
I
right.
I
It's
don't
not
know
just
if
because their pocketbooks are getting smaller.
they're getting smaller, exactly. Yes, it's all combined into one.
You get a double whammy there.
Exactly.
So, what advice would you give any other entrepreneurs or people that are thinking of starting their own businesses?
Well, my advice.
You started 3.
I started 3. They're all similar. I owned one tailoring shop, one custom wedding design shop. They're a little bit similar. The wedding shop was completely different ballpark, though.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe the piece of advice I would say is, just follow your heart. Do what you feel is right. Do what you love. No one else is going to make you happy. You have to make yourself happy. And what better way to go to work than by going to work and doing something that makes you so bliss all the time? So
Yeah. Well, that sounds like that's spoken like a true yogi entrepreneur.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. I'm definitely not the model of a business textbook entrepreneur. That's for sure.
Well, no, but I mean, in terms of following your truth and being happy, because even if somebody's not practicing yoga today in business, that's what a lot of people are saying.
Exactly. Yeah. I've tried to not follow my heart and do what everybody else thought was right, and it doesn't work for me.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
And
Thank
giving
you.
us some insight into who you are and how you're operating your business.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Until next time, I'm Susan Shaner with Community Forum. So this part